of lack of accountability, and if the company cannot implement systems that will punish abusers severely, if they're not willing to root out the abusers with a true zero tolerance policy, they keep saying zero tolerance, but we all know it's not true, then there's no point to any of these programs, all of this training, because training cannot fix an inherently shitty person. All you can do is find the infection and exterminate it, but the issue right now is that leadership know about the infection, they're just deciding to do nothing about it because self-preservation is the top priority, or because they simply don't care enough, as ground floor employees are often treated as tools and not human beings. Tools that are expendable, tools that are dispensable, tools that can be easily replaced. Last but not least, the open letter reads, "We stand with all of our friends, teammates, and colleagues, as well as the members of our dedicated community who have experienced mistreatment or harassment of any kind. We will not be silenced, we will not stand aside, and we will not give up until the company we love is a workplace we can all feel proud to be part of again. We will be the change." Freaking love this open letter. And persistence really is the key here. What the corporates want is for all of this to blow over while they kind of keep their heads down and for people to eventually forget about this stuff. But it is so important that employees and the community at large do not be silenced, do not stand aside, and do not give up. That this discussion continues until tangible changes are made, until the proper repercussions occur, and until the right people are held accountable, because otherwise we'll be back to zero and this cycle will repeat itself. We have to continue to talk about this. We cannot let Activision Blizzard slide on this one, and in that way we can change hopefully the industry as a whole, or start to enact some form of positive change by setting a precedence with Activision Blizzard, one of the biggest game publishing companies and one of the biggest companies period. We can set a precedence for other companies as well, let them know that if Activision Blizzard can't get away with it, you sure as hell can't either. One more thing I'd like to highlight before I close out this video is this breaking news from Jason Schreier. Activision Blizzard employees will strike tomorrow outside Blizzard's campus to protest the company's responses to the discrimination lawsuit and to demand more equitable treatment for staff. So beyond an open letter, the staff are actually going to go on strike. They're actually going to stop working on Wednesday, and they're going to take a stand. And I'm going to report on this in a separate video, especially after the strike actually happens, and let you know how all of that goes. But employees are more and more fed up, and this isn't the first time we've seen employees protest. When the whole Blitzchung situation happened, a number of employees protested and engaged in a strike. And then with the pay disparity kind of making its way to the public as the employees shared their salaries on this Excel sheet in revolt. But this right here feels like the biggest shitstorm yet for Activision Blizzard heads and leadership and the company as a whole. And I hope they keep this ball rolling, because Activision Blizzard cannot keep getting away with their bullshit, whether it's silencing someone who is speaking out in support of their own country, whether it's the way they treat and pay their employees, or whether it's the way they enable abusers who harass and discriminate. For now though, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the open letter that thousands of both former and current Activision Blizzard employees have signed. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.
Okay, today is a really rough topic, and it's a topic that's been pretty much front and center for the past week now, but it's a topic I feel every YouTuber should cover who has a vested interest in the space, because it is, without question, going to become a defining moment in the history of gaming. I need to be very clear right now about exactly how I'm going to cover this. I will not be going in depth on specific allegations. I will not be digging around trying to verify accusations, and I won't be discussing the merit of these events, because there is, honestly speaking, simply too much coming to light right now. There are hundreds of allegations from over 100 people. This is not a twit-longer cancellation. This is a real problem, and it's taken the form of a legal action being brought by the state of California versus Activision Blizzard. There are dozens of sources verifying accusations. There are various levels of severity when we look at what has been claimed, and understanding that Activision Blizzard will get a day in court to defend themselves, as is required and very necessary, I want to discuss the entire situation from top to bottom without focusing on individual accusations because, like I said, there are just too many of them. To put it in perspective, however, without focusing too much, there was an alleged death as a result of workplace culture. An employee took her own life after a work trip, or during a work trip rather, after coworkers shared lewd pictures of her around between them. There were dozens, hundreds even, reports of workplace abuse, sexual harassment, assault, and so much more. This could very well be the end of Blizzard. The development for World of Warcraft has already been paused. It's unclear whether or not there will ever be another BlizzCon convention. Really, I don't think that would be a good idea. It's unclear what will happen to Activision itself in light of this lawsuit, and what we are witnessing is what appears to be the most severe workplace culture reckoning in gaming, period. That's no small claim. Just recently, Ubisoft grappled with numerous allegations of improper workplace culture, which resulted in multiple executive departures. Riot Games, the developer and publisher for League of Legends, was accused of having a frat boy culture, nearly word for word was being alleged here and now with Activision Blizzard, but those accusations never really hit critical mass. All over the industry, we've seen stories about crunch, harassment, and atmospheric problems. I have my own opinions on the wider usage of the term crunch right now for a multitude of reasons, and that's a whole separate video. But this isn't that. This is so much more and so much worse than what we have seen before. I genuinely don't know what the future of Blizzard will ultimately look like. It all reminds me of a TV show called Succession. For those that haven't seen it or haven't seen all of it, I am about to discuss spoilers, so be warned or skip ahead or whatever. The show is about a global media and entertainment company called Waystar Royco. Waystar Royco, owned by the Roy family, is in the midst of a power transition, but during that power transition, things come to light that radically change how the company's future will be shaped. It starts as a sort of side arc, if you will. A rising executive and a bumbling assistant are given access to a file, and that file shows that there has been an ongoing pattern of criminal behavior, harassment, and other much more very severe situations in their cruise line division, which were being covered up at foreign ports. The file has to be destroyed, the evidence has to be hidden, and once introduced, the situation looms over their entire family like a dark shadow, only ever getting closer to the public. Eventually, it all comes out. There's no way to cover something like that up forever. People come forward, the news breaks, and the entire company is forced to radically change, culminating in the father at the end of the final season before the new one is released, the most powerful man in the picture, being thrown under the wheels of the bus by his own son to try and salvage the company's reputation. This, of course, is a dramatization. However, there are eerily similar components here which make it an easy comparison when trying to examine what actually happened at Blizzard, and how disastrous it really is. For years, the state of California, like a state-run investigation, not some ex-employee with a private law firm, the state of California has been conducting a covert investigation of the company, finding that there have been not one, not two, not dozens, but hundreds of accounts where abuse, harassment, and, on one occasion, even death occurred. Let's get into the lawsuit and the response. I won't cover the litigatory details here because I'm not a lawyer. Hogue Law over on the Hogue Law YouTube channel does an excellent job breaking this all down, so I'll leave that to the experts. But the lawsuit itself, as stated earlier, is a legitimate legal action. This is not a twit longer that says, I felt uncomfortable this one time, please ruin him. This is an alleged culture of pretty horrifying stuff, widespread horrifying stuff, that covers a broad range of different departments and topics. I will link the lawsuit down below for anyone who wants to read it for themselves. That's just part one. Part two is the response, or responses, plural, for Blizzard. There are effectively three ways to handle a PR disaster from a corporate perspective. Option one, calmly put out a well-worded response and fix the problem as best you can with some transparency, at least some degree of transparency. That's the rare one, okay? That hardly ever happens. Option two, put out a badly worded response, a clumsy response maybe, and don't really fix the problem, but do enough so that you have something to point to and say, we did something, look, we tried. That's the common one. That's like highly common in the gaming industry especially. And then option three, put out multiple contradictory statements because you have absolutely no fucking idea what's going on, make it all worse, and it's too late to fix a lot of these problems anyway, so you're just fucked. That's the Activision Blizzard one. Like I said, they get their day in court, but in the court of public opinion, it's already a bloodbath. Blizzard CEO J. Allen Brack put out a statement internally, leaked by Jason Schreier, it was an email, I believe, which claimed that they, Blizzard, would, quote, listen to anyone who came forward. It claimed that harassment was condemned categorically on all fronts. It referenced Gloria Steinem, which read really strange and didn't make a ton of sense there, but whatever, and effectively communicated a position of, this will get investigated because we are viewing it to be true or at least potentially true. Well, that's just the first one. In a statement to PC Gamer, however, Activision Blizzard claimed that the allegations were, quote, distorted and in many cases false descriptions of Blizzard's past, end quote, which was then underlined by an email from Fran Townsend, and she actually has her own torture scandals in the past. She worked under the Bush administration, and she's been involved with a whole lot of stuff that would really make your stomach turn probably, and she's got a seedy history to say the very least, right? So Fran Townsend, who has all that in her past, Activision Blizzard's compliance officer now, which said things like, quote, "The Activision companies of today, the Activision companies that I know, are great companies with good values," end quote, despite being with the company for only 6 months. She also stated, quote, "We work at a company that truly values equality and fairness. Rest assured that leadership is committed to continuing to maintain a safe, fair, and inclusive workplace. We cannot let egregious actions of others and a truly meritless and irresponsible lawsuit damage our culture of respect and equal opportunity for all employees," end quote. That is a totally different tone and message when compared to J. Allen Brack, and what's worse, he wasn't the only one. Activision President Rob Kostick, at the very same time, was sending out emails internally to employees saying, "The allegations are deeply disturbing. Let me be clear, there is zero tolerance for this type of behavior in our workplace or, frankly, in our society. We as a company take every allegation seriously and investigate all claims," end quote. Again, wildly different than their compliance officer, who called the lawsuit meritless and irresponsible. Activision Blizzard is on fire. Not literally speaking, but from a reputational and public perception standpoint, they are being incinerated. However, all of this ignores another key factor that I want to outline, which might explain a seemingly separate PR disaster from 2019. Here is where I need a pretty big disclaimer. I have a contact in the gaming space who has sources of their own, and I trust this person's input, okay? I actually legitimately do trust this person. I've worked with information they gave me before, and I will probably do so again, so take that for what you will. This person, with their own source, has indicated to me that there is a significant connection between the mass layoffs of 2019 and the more recent allegations from California. Postscript add-on here, that source is Sibsidian over at the Triple S League. I talked with him and he's comfortable with me putting that information out there and naming him publicly. What does that mean? Well, keep in mind, again, this is based on a source that I do trust with one corroboration at the moment, but I'm actively seeking more corroborations as well. So if you have any information at all, a business email can be found in the description down below. This would mean that the 800 or so layoffs, nearly 8% of the Activision Blizzard global staff at the time in 2019, during a record-setting year of profit, were designed to address and cover up these now visible problems. That might seem fine on a surface level. They had employees causing problems, lay them off. Good, that's how it should be. But no, because the source claims that this was a sledgehammer approach that didn't just lay off the guilty parties or even the accused parties. It laid off anyone who had pointed the finger and anyone who was even remotely associated with these type of scenarios. If that's true, not good. It is alleged by the source that this was an overcorrection, sort of, and that many people fired were not really involved at all. As a response, Activision Blizzard would go on to hire back a number of the previously laid off staff, at lower salaries by the way, but maintained its distance not only from those accused of workplace malpractice or impropriety, but also those who had stepped forward to defend themselves. An example of how this might actually line up rather precisely, in a video just released by Bellular News, who also owns a prominent World of Warcraft channel and has many inside sources on this subject, it is claimed that the worst of the behavior at Blizzard, in particular, came from the Battle.net team. Well, in 2019, most of the layoffs aimed at Blizzard during a record-setting profit year were targeted towards the publishing department, which would be, unless I am grossly mistaken here, Battle.net. It is also alleged by this source that after the layoffs, there was an overhauled contract for employment. I cannot verify this with my own eyes. I've not seen the document, so again, take all of this with a grain of salt. But the claim is that the hiring process was redefined to make it significantly harder to speak out, which would once again align with a timeline formed about this 2019 mass layoff spree as a function of looming workplace malpractice and abuse allegations forming. Again, I'm seeking more sources on this if possible. I cannot say with absolute certainty what went down back in 2019, and you should take this for what it is, a fair bit of speculation backed by a source I personally trust, but not something with a multitude of ex-employee testimonials right now to back it up. At least not yet. Either way, almost 1,000 current employees from Activision Blizzard have signed on to denounce the company's response to all of these events. Reddit threads with dozens of corroborating witness stories and other support statements have been forming all over the place, and from every single angle, even internally, the company appears to be falling apart. There is a sort of consensus forming in the world of public perception that Blizzard executives did know about these things. Activision publishing executives did know what was happening, and they deliberately covered it up. Whether true or not, and I'm not making that determination here. Like, I am not the unilateral arbiter of what is true or not. I'm just saying what has been forming out there on the internet. Whether true or not, that's extremely damaging. In the online world, oftentimes whoever shoots first wins, no questions asked. Blizzard is the subject of a huge opening salvo from the state of California, and for many people watching, that's all they need. I find it very hard to believe that the same Blizzard will emerge on the other side of this. Possibly not even the same Activision Blizzard will emerge on the other side of this without radical change. Executives gone, development for certain games completely stalled out or even indefinitely put on suspension, and who knows what else, because what we are witnessing is absolutely, beyond any question, a defining moment in the games industry which will have lengthy, far-reaching consequences for what used to be one of the world's leading studios. Blizzard used to be the gold standard. Blizzard used to be the company producing games everyone wanted to play, but now their employees are abused, their corporate decision-making process is infected and beyond suspect, while they fend off lawsuits at a caliber we really haven't yet seen in the entire gaming space. The company has fallen from grace, and it remains to be seen when that fall will stop. That's it. If you want to support, there are links down below, primarily Odyssey, which is a YouTube platform alternative for those interested. Also Locals, $5 a month will support the channel and you get completely ad-free versions of all the content. There's another gaming YouTuber to check out, merch, social media, etc., etc. Join the Discord if you want to play Amazon's new upcoming MMO New World with me and join my guild, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching and have a nice night.
And that is why China's dick tastes so good in my mouth. What's going on, Activision Blizzard? What are you guys up to? Hey, Actman, we're banning a Hearthstone player because he stood up for civil rights. That sounds really douchey. It is, but you know me. You wanna get some pussy later, dog, bro, dude? Yeah, pound some brews. Oh, what's up, Blizzard? How's it hanging? It's going really good, Actman. We just remastered Warcraft 3 and it's a total dumpster fire. The fans hate it. Yeah, that was pretty soul-crushing. You know me. And tomorrow I'm gonna lay off 800 employees because... Blue, 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 blue. You know me, Activision Blizzard here. Wow, it's almost like you guys can't stoop any lower. Can't stoop any lower? Oh, yeah?
So if you haven't heard, I hate to be the bad news bear, but Blizzard is still a terrible company. In fact, they might be even worse than we previously thought.
It's impossible!
They've recently come under fire for some serious allegations, and a California lawsuit has been filed against them for sexual misconduct and harassment, treating their female employees like crap, unfair pay, and fostering a frat boy culture.
Hey, just was wondering, is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke?
No.
Which, after reading all this stuff, is very offensive to actual fraternities, because some of the stuff they're being accused of is appalling. But for 1 second, let's try to be objective. To my knowledge, these are allegations, not proven facts. Even a company as bad as Activision Blizzard deserves to be viewed as innocent until proven guilty. That being said, it's not looking good. I think this story was broken by Jason Schreier, and this man is a national treasure. He is a shining beacon of what games journalism should be. Breaking story after story, revealing the seedy underbelly of the games industry and the truth that we would all rather look away from. If you haven't seen some of my other videos on Blizzard, really go check them out. To summarize, I have a love-hate relationship with Blizzard, and it's basically been like watching my best friend get hooked on methamphetamine. So, very sad. As a company, they fell long ago. But this is pretty much the nail in the coffin for me. And to be clear, these accusations are aimed specifically at Blizzard and not so much Activision. However, we'd be fools to think Activision has had no part in the radical change of the company's culture. So the allegations in this lawsuit were compiled over a 2-year investigation conducted by the state of California. I repeat, the state of California. So this is not some random tweet with no factual backing whatsoever. It's a little bit more serious than that. The lawsuit alleges that women were paid disproportionately to men at the company, even at the executive level. They were promoted less often than men and terminated faster. In the office, women are subjected to cube crawls, in which male employees drink copious amounts of alcohol as they crawl their way through cubicles and engage in inappropriate behavior towards female employees. Getting hammered on the job sure does a great job of explaining the current state of World of Warcraft. Male employees proudly come into work hungover, play video games for long periods, and delegate their responsibilities to female employees, engage in banter about their sexual encounters, and joke about. You got the views you were after, so pay up. You're crying to the subs, Pally. Guess who's waking up over here? Time to cash out. Will you get it over with? Maybe cons liked Fallout 4, but I ain't a fink. Dig? You've clicked on your last video, kid. Sorry you got twisted up in this review. From where you're viewing, it must seem like an 18-karat run of bad clickbait. Truth is, New Vegas was awesome from the start. The Fallout series is easily one of the most recognized and beloved in all of gaming. With its nihilistic tone, diverse characters and factions, all with deep history and lore, Fallout defines the word nuclear. Nuclear? I mean, just look at how cute Vault Boy is. Fallout's also unique because it's really funny and cheerful at times.
Try not to smile so wide, baby. You might break your mouth.
You know, because post-apocalyptic stories aren't usually happy.
Kills dog.
But in Fallout, you've got this really dark sense of humor.
Stop! What the fuck are you doing? My brother died at the Battle of Hoover Dam. You're desecrating a war memorial.
You're a little bitch and your brother was too.
Oh, now it's on!
But to truly appreciate what an accomplishment New Vegas is, we gotta head down to the Strip, baby. Why are people able to put thousands of hours into this single-player game? How is the combat customization and RPG mechanics? Why is the story and characters so captivating? Is New Vegas a world worth diving into? And why did this snazzy-looking man just shoot me in the face? Well, let's patrol the Mojave Wasteland, grab our Pip-Boy, and make our last delivery kid straight into this.
Broken bone and liar's lead, caught off guard and left for dead. Luck keeps turning as the light begins to dawn.
With the first two Fallouts releasing in back-to-back years, it would take another 10 and a complete buyout of the IP from Bethesda to turn Fallout into what it is today. Which, oh shit.
That wasn't supposed to happen.
Go back, go back, how do I turn this thing off? Most people entered the franchise with 3, considered one of the GOATs, but for some hardcore fans, Fallout 3 was missing something that 2 and 1 had.
Yeah, whatever, asshole.
Regardless, it's difficult for any developer to snatch a series away from its creators and still keep the same feeling and identity. Often we end up with something that feels like a knockoff. Other times the world is tortured with the release of something like, believe it or not, Fallout already has a cheap knockoff. It's called 76. Honestly, Bethesda deserves a lot of credit for taking the series into 3D. If you don't like 3, just remember we wouldn't have Vegas without it. But there was room for improvement, and while Bethesda was busy developing the only good game they'd release for the next 10 years, in 2008, they reached out to Obsidian with an exceptional offer. So, you want us to make a sequel to Fallout 3, Todd, my boy? That's right, but here's the catch, baby. You got 18 months, dig? 18 months? Are you mad? And it better get an 85 on Metacritic or else you won't be getting a bonus, kid. You ain't a fink, are ya? Bitch, don't you know how long this takes?
We wanted to make sure, when looking at the mechanics for the game, that we weren't trying to reinvent the wheel. A lot of people like Fallout 3. A lot of people like Fallout 3. So the experience should feel familiar to them.
Obsidian didn't have time to reinvent the wheel. What we ended up with was more like a spin-off, expansion, since it looks, feels, and plays almost identical on a technical level. Bethesda couldn't have contracted a studio better for the job. Coincidentally, Obsidian was made up of many who worked on the originals. Clearly, this was a team that understood Fallout's identity, something that Bethesda is really struggling with nowadays. Obsidian also made Knights of the Old Republic 2, which, if you're following the pattern here, was also a sequel to a critically acclaimed game that for some reason was given less than 2 years to develop. Both New Vegas and KOTOR 2 were extremely ambitious, had fantastic writing, large in part due to Chris Avellone. Seriously, this dude deserves way more recognition. To make anything halfway decent in the game industry typically takes 2 to 3 years. Yet somehow Obsidian just pulled it together on New Vegas just as they did before. So without even getting a glance at Doc Mitchell's fantastic mustache, New Vegas is already an accomplishment simply because it exists. Fallout New Vegas has been the most requested review on this channel for the last 2 years, large in part due to the efforts of the NCR Trooper.
Patrolling the Mojave Wasteland almost makes you wish for the Actman to do a "Why was Fallout New Vegas so awesome" review.
Yes, I see.
Patrolling the Mojave Wasteland almost
quiet.
makes you wish for the Actman to do a "Why was Fallout."
I order you to be quiet.
Patrolling the Mojave Wasteland.
Shut up! Will you shut up?
Only after I put 50 hours into New Vegas and stood atop Hoover Dam waving the flag of a two-headed bear did I finally understand why so many people love this game. New Vegas wastes no time in pulling you in. As the soothing voice of Frank Sinatra massages your ears, you see some troopers waving flags on the dazzling streets. Some robots go by, and then...
Bravo 6. Going dark.
Priority 1.
We see a different group of troopers head into the city. The camera pans out further to a remote location, and we hear the all-too classic phrase.
War never changes.
Ron Perlman gives us the juicy backstory. The atomic war, vaults, and everyone who emerged to form tribes in the wasteland. We catch a glimpse of the two most important locations, Hoover Dam and a city untouched by nuclear fallout. The narration might lead most everyone to believe who the good guys and bad guys are. But New Vegas plays with a stacked deck, baby, and this is one of its many tricks. More importantly, the opening sparks no shortage of questions and sets the player on a journey for answers. Who was this man and his accomplices? Who told you that Mohawk looked good? Why did he want us dead? Where can I get that suit? What were we delivering and to who? Find out next time on Fallout Ball Z. New Vegas gives you, just the tastiest slice of everything it has to offer over the next 40 hours in roughly 5 minutes. So having been shot in the head and left for dead in an unmarked grave, you, the courier, cheat death. Oh man,
How about that?
My head. I had a dream I stopped playing video games for a day.
Whoa, easy there, easy. You've been out cold a couple of days now. How about your name? Can you tell me your name?
My name? Acting Mailman.
I can't say it's what I'd have picked for you, but if that's your name, that's your name.
If you didn't just take a bullet out of my head, I'd kick your ass, Doc.
There's a lot of angles to this caper. Complexities aplenty.
Now it's time for one of the best character creators in gaming. And no, it's not because of the visuals. The music is oddly soothing and unsettling at the same time. Really powerful piece, and to my knowledge, it's the only time you hear it. Dr. Mustache wants to know who you main in League of Legends, what sort of playstyle you prefer. He does this by asking your opinions on some fine art. Yo, that's definitely two bears high-fiving. Now this is such a great way to introduce decision-making to the player. The world of New Vegas is defined by the vast stretches of the Mojave Wasteland. But what really drives the player's experience in that wasteland is how they build their character. And that is New Vegas's greatest strength. Choice. Immediately I could tell there were tons of deep mechanics, so much so that it's very overwhelming in the beginning. Maybe my parents didn't put enough points into my intelligence, but starting a character is pretty daunting. What's this? How does VATS work? What does crippling limbs do? How in Easy Pete's name do I hack terminals? No, seriously, what am I supposed to do? Why does my gun only fire when it feels like it?
I don't really feel like it.
If you're new to Fallout and trying to understand how everything works right from the start, just play it. Fake it till you make it. You'll get the hang of things. Unless you're stupid like me and didn't know how to equip different ammo types until 35 hours in. Nor did I ever use a workbench to do anything besides recycle ammo. And that's when I had a revelation. It got me thinking, how many ways I wasn't using the sandbox and tools around me? What quests did I miss? Which areas did I never visit? What else is this game hiding from me? It's these very questions that have no doubt led people to put thousands of hours into a single-player game, uncovering every nook and cranny possible. A lot of RPGs fall into the pit of focusing too much on the numbers, Mason. How high is your light level, Guardian? Nobody cares, Zavala. You don't like the light? Most first-person shooters don't have RPG mechanics, and those that do are often pretty shallow about it. New Vegas caters to fans of RPGs and shooters because you can play the numbers game if you really want to whoop ass, but you can still survive the wasteland if you don't. What makes New Vegas special, pun intended, is just how many ways you can play it. This is where all the different skills and special stats come in. These will do things like get you better prices at shops, repair weapons easier, or do you want to blow shit up and send people's limbs flying across the desert? Want to be a skilled marksman who snipes from a distance? You can do that. But what about the perks, baby? Let's do a little comparison. This is how many perks were in the original Fallout. Here's 2. This is 3, 4, and this is how many perks are in New Vegas. Some perks will give unique dialogue options.
There's something I like about you. You just seem really understanding.
Help you see better in the dark, give you an extra special point, allow you to tame animals. A lot of perks are going to be based on your playstyle. Let's say you want to sell a bunch of stuff but are tired of managing your inventory. Well, there's a perk that lets you fast travel while you're over encumbered. So just head to Good Springs, drop all that good shit off, bing bang boom, you're on your way. This is how perks are supposed to be in role-playing games. Not just a number boost, but you should be unlocking a part of the game that you couldn't previously use. In Fallout 3, you can become a godlike being and excel in absolutely every category. New Vegas forces you to create a more specific playstyle. You know in other games when you can convince people to jump off a cliff or kill their best friend, you know, fun stuff.
No!
But even in one of my all-time favorites, whether or not you convince people to do good or bad things is determined by a single stat.
Credits will do fine.
So if you put points into that, you can breeze through every conversation. New Vegas is different. It's genius, because while there is a speech stat that handles most of those conversations, sometimes you need to be an expert in another area. Like if you don't know squat about explosives, Easy Pete won't help you out. And then what are you gonna do?
Too dangerous. Sorry. Blow yourself up. Blow your neighbor up. Blow the whole town up.
At some point or another, every skill has an influence on dialogue, some more than others, but you won't be able to win them all.
Third floor access is for executives only. Please identify.
I got you some ice cream.
Thank you, sir. Have a nice day.
You literally cannot experience everything New Vegas has to offer in a single playthrough. If you put all your points into lockpicking, you can open everything, but you can't convince this kid to buy drugs from you. And that's a real tragedy.
Red Brick never touches Kims.
New Vegas is based on trade-offs. Trades give you positive and negative bonuses right from the start, and these are gonna severely affect your playstyle. Best of all, if you picked Wild Wasteland, you get to fight aliens and see all sorts of crazy stuff. Often in RPGs, at some point your character becomes so overpowered, it takes all the decision making out of leveling up, because you're gonna kick the game's ass whether or not you can be noticed underwater. Every time I leveled up in New Vegas, I took a solid 5 minutes to look over my options. Skills, perks, traits, stats, challenges. All these mechanics work together in harmony. That's why this game has such a satisfying progression and fair challenge. What's that? Oh yeah, I guess we're still in the tutorial. Well, thanks for the Pip-Boy, Doc. Hope I don't come back to kill you later. And now, my friends, let the great journey into the Mojave Wasteland begin. Patrolling the Mojave Wasteland almost makes you wish New Vegas would stop crashing. Normally I'd be a lot more critical of... What in the goddamn do I really gotta talk about?
On the desert sands and ruined roads I roam.
We seem to be experimenting some technological differences.
If it wasn't a stupid decision to make this game in 18 months, whoever decided to stop patching New Vegas, you gave it a bad rap. I get it, playing older titles, you gotta lower your standards, but if I have to install mods to make something playable, I'm sorry, but you lost karma with me. New Vegas is far from a perfect game, and that's what is so tragic. Let's say it was remastered and played on a new engine, bam, just like that, it's in the conversation for top 20 video games of all time. Bethesda's legacy is so inescapable that even when they commission other people to make games for them, they're still riddled with bugs, and not just ants.
Hey, that really sucked!
Writing, combat, world design, music, everything else is perfect. But that's the thing, all of my problems with New Vegas are on the technical level. Would have been nice to spruce up the animations, improve the visuals, make the AI better.
Why don't we just wait here for a little while? See what happens.
But I imagine the jankiness, crashing, and lack of polish were all due to the rushed deadline. So if you can bite your tongue when the game inevitably crashes, if you can look past the technical problems, and you really should, what you'll find is an experience like none other. So your first goal is to track down the man who shot you and also find out who these two goons are. Answers lie in New Vegas. If you talk to folks around Good Springs, they'll tell you how to play the game. And this series of quests introduces you to every single mechanic, and it's brilliant. You get to barter with a merchant, talk to an explosives expert, repair a radio, there's a terminal you can hack, you learn about karma and fame, there's some geckos and manises to kill. The starting area of Good Springs offers something useful for every single skill, and that informs the player. Hey, this is what you can do with this talent in the future. But shucks, we need some conflict. Turns out there's a fierce rivalry between the local powder gangers and the citizens of Good Springs, which is an identical setup to the final quest. You're given two options. If you defend the town, you need to visit each person and rally them together, but convincing them to fight requires a different skill. That's just good game design. The tutorial ensures that no matter how any person creates their character, they'll be useful in some way. The other choice is to side with the powder gangers and kill everyone.
Shit, yeah.
Thanks for teaching me how to shoot a rifle, Sonny. These are the type of gut-wrenching choices the player has to get used to making. But what New Vegas is what the Mojave Wasteland really is freedom.
When will we be free? You think we can make it? Freedom!
You looking for a pat on the back? My mother is dead.
At this point, you'll likely head to Prim and follow the main quest, as that's the obvious direction you're given. Don't you want to find Big Dick Ben? Yes, I do, but the people of Prim need me to find a new sheriff and restore order to this lawless land.
The Kaisar has marked you for death, and the Legion obeys.
But of course, an ambush by Legion ruffians. How dare you destroy Nipton? What's this? I've stumbled across a bitter rivalry between the NCR and the Great Khans?
We got a situation with some Great Khans right now.
Hold, soldier. I shall negotiate with their chieftain.
What the hell?
Oh, it's one of the guys.
You're that courier Benny wasted back in Good Springs.
You're supposed to be dead!
Am I not?
But wait a minute. What if I wanted to go back? All the way back? Is it possible to head directly to the strip right from the start? Yes! Obsidian discovered the secret to eternal replayability. Most of the factions and quest lines in New Vegas can be accessed at any point.
Was that meant to be a shocking revelation?
There's never a moment where you get handed a quest and some nutsack is like, "Excuse me, sir, I won't speak to you unless you're level 13. None of that. This gives the player an enormous amount of control over the events of the game and what order they play out. If you know the way, you can skip right to the second act. But the route to do so is much less obvious and more dangerous.
Why are you running?
And that ensures only experienced gamers will know how to get there right away. I completed entire subplots before even being asked to. Alright, listen, trooper. If we're gonna defeat Caesar's Legion— I killed him already. What? Yeah, he said—
Mark my words, you piece of shit.
And then I killed him. Well, you're gonna have to recruit the boomers to our side. This is a group of explosive experts who will kill anyone that gets near their base. There's gotta be— I already made it over there. Oh, come on. What can I say? The boomers love me. For the Battle of Hoover Dam, you have to visit the Brotherhood of Steel and boomers at Nellis. But I just happened across these places. It's not just the order in which you can do things that makes exploring the Mojave so dynamic, it's also the quest design itself.
The whole premise of Fallout is about giving the players at least 3 ways to solve each quest.
For instance, in the Brotherhood of Steel questline, you're told to get rid of an NCR trooper that's stalking them by convincing him to leave or killing him.
Thanks for the information. You may have saved my life.
Next, you have to recover 3 lost holotapes in 3 separate locations and can do so in any order. But then you have a choice between showing the contents of those tapes to Paladin Hardin or by giving them to McNamara. Hardin wants the Brotherhood to continue exploring the wasteland and realize the Brotherhood's true potential, and McNamara wants to keep everyone locked down and safe during this pandemic. Do you notice how every single quest in this chain offers the player some kind of choice? Do you see how it gives you a sense of agency and control? Siding with the Powder Gangers in the fight for Good Springs isn't an obvious option, but even right from the start, New Vegas gives you options. This is what I call the tree branch quest design, and it has to be the most time-consuming type of quest and game to write. But to take this style and apply it to literally every objective in the game is absolutely insane. Cyberpunk was developed over 5 years and it only managed to do this in one single quest, just to put things in perspective. Here's another example. When allying with the boomers, you need to gain fame with them, but you're not given a linear series of chores. Instead, Pearl says, hey, here's 10 things you can do, but you only gotta do 5. Like helping a dude find a girlfriend, raising an old bomber from the lake, talking to children, ugh. Listen to the history of the boomers. Come on, there's gotta be a boring quest in here somewhere. Go kill ants. There it is. God damn it, even this has layers. These ants are different from every other ant in the game in that they explode if you shoot them with energy weapons. But But also, if you have enough repair skill, you can make a sonic emitter that'll kill them all for you. This is the New Vegas secret to eternal replayability. With every storyline consisting of so many different choices and outcomes, it would take hundreds of hours to see and do it all. No quest is ever as straightforward as it seems. There's one where you're hired as a guard for the Van Graff's weapons store, and you have to decide who to let in. If you let this guy in,
Allahu Akbar.
Turns out he's a suicide bomber.
They're all dead.
One of my favorite happens in Camp McCarran, where you come across Dr. Hildern, who says, "Hey buddy, go recover some data from an old vault. There's a lot of plants in there and it's really cool." Well, that sounds like a straightforward fetch quest.
I thought it was a fairly straightforward assignment. It's a simple question
I
of
just said
retrieving
that.
data.
As soon as you walk out the door, his assistant stops you and says, "One of the other scientists Hildern sent out there hasn't returned." If you go back to him and ask with enough speech, he'll tell you he sent at least 8 other people there.
I have no evidence that they're dead. 1,000 things could have happened between here and the vault.
Oh, none have returned? Gee, I wonder if anything weird is going on over at Vault 22. Using this knowledge, you can negotiate for more caps, and just by spending a little bit of extra time talking to people, you've not only learned more about the quest and the story and potential danger, you've gotten a better reward for doing it. We see that the plants have grown throughout the entire vault, creating these spore crawlers and other nasty plants. Terminals are scattered everywhere detailing what happened, how this got out of control, and you find the missing scientist Keely and the data. She wants you to destroy it so that nobody else uses this to weaponize it, and now the motivations of Hildern become clear. You can lie to Keely and not force a fight, take the data back to Hildern and just forget about it, or you can destroy the data and return to him empty-handed. New Vegas has so much more going on behind the scenes than it's willing to admit, but if the player is thorough, they can uncover it. It's the most authentic, choose-your-own-adventure story ever told in gaming. That said, yes, you can kill everyone, except children, of course. That wouldn't be fun. Most of the story is all about who you help and why, but being a selfish asshole and killing everyone is literally always an option too.
Someone's been murdered! Man down!
And that's what's so cool. The game doesn't break if you kill Doc Mitchell, only your heart will.
I love you!
New Vegas has incredible writing and characters, but what makes it dynamic is how the story adjusts to your actions. Nobody is so important that the game has to arbitrarily block you from killing them.
You triggered my trap card!
If you kill Kaisar or the president of the NCR, they still wage war against each other, just led by different people. It's possible to get an ending slideshow where all the main characters narrate their deaths at the hands of the courier. There is a contingency though. Obviously the player needs certain information, so oftentimes there's like notes or journals. Should you silence them before? What's awesome is how NPCs react to your actions throughout the game.
Caesar's dead. Bet he didn't see this coming when he was having his coffee this morning.
The Legion's aggression will outlive Caesar. Indeed, they'll try to take the dam as a tribute to his memory.
You know that Legion furry Vulpes you meet in Nipton? Well, you're supposed to talk to him later on after you meet Mr. House. But if you kill him, then another Legion guy takes his place and mentions it.
Your crimes against the Legion, including the death of the fearless Vulpes and Kulta, are hereby forgiven.
Recruiting Boone will often make NCR troopers say, "Wish I had a first recon guy looking after me." Once you get the platinum chip, you don't even have to talk to Mr. House. You can just straight up murder him. Killing him before anyone asks you to will give unique dialogue that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Now that that's out of the way, let's see. Mr. House was a concern, but someone conveniently dealt with him for us. Oh, that reminds me. You might be happy to know that your efforts haven't gone unnoticed.
The world of New Vegas is always changing around you. Where you go, who you ally with, what groups you destroy, the weapons you use, and how you build your character. It all matters and makes New Vegas engaging from start to finish. Every playthrough is gonna be different. This is the ultimate sandbox game.
I don't enjoy killing, but when done righteously, it's just a chore, like any other.
But for all its successes, New Vegas sure does take its sweet time getting to the good stuff.
The right stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I think the writing is spectacular, but sometimes I just want to shoot things. So often you'll run into a character, ask a simple question about a man in a checkered suit, and they'll be like, "Oh, that guy? Let me tell you about my life story first." If you don't explore off the beaten path, you'll be begging for a group of Legionnaires to ambush you. But when things do get rolling, ooh, the action's intense.
Can't run from me.
Get him off me! Get him off me! Help me, dude! New Vegas was able to blend two polar opposite genres together in a way that I don't think any other game has. You've got the fast-paced first-person shooter action mixed with the slower, more tactical strategy of a role-playing game. When you slow things down by using VATS, it's almost like swapping to a turn-based game. While this mostly kicks ass, the combat is often interrupted by the same thing that plagues a lot of Bethesda games: having a menu that does everything. Want to swap weapons? Pull out the Pip-Boy. Trying to take drugs, kid? Whip out the Pip-Boy. Need to heal? Pip-Boy. If this game ever got remastered, I'd love to have the option to quick select healing items, weapons, and drugs. Dark Souls' quick select item slots are just so perfect. I don't know why games don't do this more. It keeps the combat moving. But shooty games are only as fun as the tools you use and enemies you fight. Real quick, how many different weapons you think there are in New Vegas? Take a guess. You don't know this. 178.
It's impossible!
Counting unique weapons and DLC, that is straight wild. I felt like every 5 minutes I was finding some cool new piece of tech. It's gotta be challenging to make a hyper unrealistic setting like the end of the world feel genuine. But they did that. Obsidian wanted to make the tech reflect the world around it. So you have modern firearms like M16s, 9mm pistols, stuff that people maybe brought out of the vaults that's considered old world. Then you got makeshift energy weapons, things that people probably made in the 200 years since the Atomic War. Blending futuristic, Western, and modern eras together so successfully is what makes Fallout, well, Fallout. New Vegas never had me question if any part of it was realistic or not. Based on your reputation, certain areas can be inaccessible, at least not without killing everyone. Depending on who you travel with, certain companions will straight up tell you, "Just so you know, I hate the Legion, and I'll murder each and every one I see, man, woman, or child." That's great, Boone. I'm gonna leave you here and go strike a deal with Kaisar. But you can sneak into these areas by wearing the outfits of each faction. Not to mention, every weapon is given a role, and in order to conquer what the game throws at you, you'll have to pack a variety of different weapons. Some weapons, like the flare gun, have unique properties that can scare off animals. Others pierce armor better. There's one pistol that calls down a laser from the sky. A mysterious magnum that plays a jam every time you pull it out. The Gatling laser is something Jesus Christ would use, but it burns through ammo like nothing else. Some melee items like the thermic lance are good even if you don't dump points into the melee skill. Boy, Cass didn't last long. In my playthrough, I rocked everything from grenade launchers to snipers, revolvers, shotguns, plasma rifles, shoulder-mounted machine guns. It's a beautiful dance of death, and you are Death's courier. But I got a question. What sort of enemies would you create in a game that takes place in a post-nuclear world? Mutated humans? Ghouls? Giant fire-breathing geckos? Two-headed cows? Radiated scorpions? Dinosaurs? In the Mojave, you're bound to run into some drugged-out creatures, and it's such a neat detail that most of the animals are reptiles because reptiles like the desert. More importantly, New Vegas answers the question, what would happen to animals in evolution post-nuclear fallout? Rather than doing what Cyberpunk did and just cluster the same enemy type together in 1,000 locations, New Vegas is actually smart where they place the enemies. They're careful not to throw any one type at you too often, so the Mojave is constantly throwing different things at you. Some baddies might seem overpowered, but they all have weaknesses. And this is where crippling limbs comes into play. Cazadors can close the gap in seconds, but if you cripple their wings, they are laughable. Knight can use Stealth Boy, so a high perception is required. Now, there is somewhat of an exploit by using a Stealth Boy and just sniping the toughest enemies in the game from afar. But I guess in that case you need to find these things before you can exploit such a strategy. While I love the game, the combat, the weapons, and the enemies, the AI is still pretty basic. I think New Vegas struggles to maintain a strong difficulty curve.
Lumbering across the west, ruined treasures repossessed. Resurrect the old soul of America.
If you told me there was a game that combined the time periods of ancient Rome, futuristic Western, and World War II era, I'd say that game is probably batshit crazy. But the last thing I'd imagine is that this combo would actually work. While the writers did a kick-ass job of molding all the factions together in a cohesive world, it's also in the level and world design that Obsidian went above and beyond. They took the setting of Vegas and slapped a post-nuclear skin over it, taking inspiration from real locations right down to the nitty-gritty details.
I wanted to sort of immerse myself more in especially the desert sort of style. I took a motorcycle trip through the desert, basically going all around the outskirts of Vegas.
I mean, they literally toured these areas to build the look and feel of the game, and I think that's why it stands out so much. It's authentic. They actually made a real Hoover Dam because of this game. That's just insane. Now, I gotta be honest, New Vegas is kind of an eyesore for 2010. I can't tell you that it looks much better than Oblivion. There's a lot of gray, dull colors, rust everywhere. It's a wasteland, Actman. What do you expect? I don't know. Most outside areas look dry and yellow while the inside of buildings is all gray. But when you see the Lucky 38 shining in the distance, it makes you feel like maybe there's hope. The city of New Vegas is a shining beacon. While you're dicking around with cazadors or doing whatever, it's a constant reminder of your ultimate goal. And by keeping this landmark inside of the player from so far away, it makes New Vegas seem like a mystical place, which it is. One of the only locations that still holds a feeling of old world civilization. Because of the setting and different themed casinos, the Strip feels like an amusement park of sorts, an escape from the dreary atmosphere outside. There's one quest where you can recruit people to perform in the Tops Casino, and before you do, this billboard doesn't have much text on it, but as you recruit people, you not only get the coolest Magnum in the world, but also see the names of the people you brought in. This is one of the many ways the level design changes based on your actions. New Vegas proves that you can make an immersive world without cutting-edge graphics and radiant AI. With Wild West-style saloons, futuristic atomic bomb museums, there's a lot of cool stuff to see and do. Through clever use of landmarks, there's always something interesting off in the distance. It might just make you want to see what that giant dinosaur is all about. Then you go in and discover a quest, and that's what's so magical about these types of open world adventures, but New Vegas in particular. You can pick any direction you want, and eventually you'll find something interesting. You'll discover new stories, locations, and people.
Scattered strays who lost their meaning, to hide and hold for the words of help and healing, be addicted, lost and scorned.
Howdy folks, it's Mr. New Vegas, and I have a good feeling about all of you listening.
After I confronted that son of a bitch Benny,
What in the goddamn?
I decided to give this cool cat a chance to explain himself. Oh, who would have guessed this two-timing Fink would double-cross me and send some hitmen my way?
What the fuck?
Now, however you choose to deal with Benny, it kickstarts the second act, and soon the player will get a chance to interact with each major faction. But we have a big question to answer. Why are politics in video games so bad? Dumb memes aside, New Vegas is the epitome of next-level writing.
Nobody's dick's that long.
I think the best games are those that get you to think on a deeper level. By the end of the story, the player will have made a choice of which political and social ideology they put into power. Whether you realize it or not, New Vegas is asking you philosophical questions about what the most ideal type of society is. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how you put politics into a game and make it interesting.
There are literally 125,000 factions in Fallout New Vegas. We're probably gonna have to cut some of them. There's the NCR, there's Caesar's Legion, there's the PTA, Mickey Mouse Club, Alcoholics Anonymous is in there right now.
But who is most fit to rule the Mojave? One thing's been made clear so far in our travels, this place is fucked. Someone needs to step in. Well, let's meet our contestants. Mr. House, current dictator of New Vegas who wields an army of Securitrons. New California Republic, the old soul of America, a democratic organization that suffers from internal corruption. Caesar's Legion, a brutal imperialistic totalitarian dictatorship based on ancient Rome. And Yes Man, an independent robot seeking to liberate New Vegas from the other three. But the Mojave is also made up of smaller but still important groups. the Great Khans, a nomadic tribe of raiders and drug-dealing hippies.
Grudalicious.
The Brotherhood of Steel, a militarized secret society bent on preserving technology and human knowledge. The Boomers, an isolated band of explosive fanatics. Now, Obsidian did a phenomenal job giving personality and backstory to each group. More importantly, Obsidian answers the question, what kind of groups would rise from the ashes in a post-apocalyptic world set around New Vegas? A bunch of Elvis Presley impersonators, that's for sure.
The thing of it is, we don't even know what his name was. All the posters just referred to him as the King.
This is where New Vegas reveals its royal flush. All the factions are at a poker table, and the courier is the dealer, able to stack the deck against whoever they choose. At first I was like, well, these two are dictatorships, and I'm not a big fan of those, and we need some kind of government, so Yes Man is out of the picture. That leaves the NCR. Surely a democracy is the best choice, right?
I love democracy.
What's that, Colonel? You want me to assassinate the leader of the Great Khans?
I don't enjoy killing.
That sounds kind of evil, but...
We don't have time for diplomacy.
Alright, if it's for the greater good. So there you are, helping to rebuild America. You go back to the Colonel and she says, hey, can you exterminate every single last person in the Brotherhood of Steel? Is there a peaceful option? No. Good thing I sided with the NCR, and no way am I regretting this decision at all. New Vegas has such a unique approach to morality because the Big Four all have compelling reasons for why they should rule, but also have crippling flaws. The New California Republic is the antithesis to the Legion, a revival of old world values like democracy, liberty, freedom, law, and order. But everywhere you go, you hear people complaining about their lack of organization, the bureaucracy that prevents them from making real changes.
The water ration's still a problem, and the NCR doesn't look like it's going to do anything about it anytime soon.
Some say the old world values they parade around are the same ones that led to nuclear war in the first place.
The bear grows without structure, follows a symbol without knowing its history.
As you travel, the areas controlled by the NCR are often plagued by raiders, internal conflict, something the Legion doesn't suffer from. The NCR is spread so thin that troopers are constantly requesting your help because they have no reinforcements, no backup communication. The NCR simply doesn't have the manpower or resources to truly unify these groups. Hell, they can't even unify themselves.
People turning against each other when the Mojave's at risk of falling? If the Republic's sinkhole progress doesn't kill us, greed will.
You can actually use this knowledge to convince the final boss, Legate Linnaeus, to back down on his campaign. The NCR also seems to be incapable of negotiating peacefully with groups, instead opting to just kill everyone. There's a shocking lack of diplomacy and discipline across the ranks.
I've told him he could make my job a whole lot easier if he would just let me shoot anyone who talks back to me.
This is the woman in charge of interrogating prisoners in a democratic society. And she's a lieutenant. You could say the NCR has good intentions, but it's hard to put faith in the way they operate. The NCR hasn't proven that their type of society will work long term.
As a young man, I was taught to venerate President Tandy of Shady Sands, the founding mother of the New California Republic. Did you know her presidency lasted 52 years? And that her father, Aradesh, was the Republic's first president? Does that sound like a democracy to you? Or a hereditary dictatorship?
Caesar's Legion. Led by one of the best written characters in gaming, the Legion operates as ancient Rome did. By conquering smaller tribes, destroying their culture, and merging everyone under a single banner and culture. Throughout your travels, the Legion's brutality is always on full display. You'll see crucified bodies wherever they go. Ask anyone and they'll tell you tales of murder, war, slavery, and death.
Worst of the worst. A tribe of degenerate losers led by a creep.
Slavers, killers, and all other kinds of trouble.
Even Legion soldiers will tell you of how their tribes were conquered. They don't tell you how they've been brainwashed to believe in this brutal society. Caesar himself rules with an iron fist and punishes his soldiers harshly for failure.
The legionaries are lined up in ranks. Every 10th man steps forward and is beaten to death by his brothers. It instills a certain robust obedience.
How could you possibly find any good in the Legion when it's portrayed as this horrible empire? Well, the Kaiser does make compelling arguments.
I'd seen what had become of the NCR's attempts to emulate the culture of pre-war America. The infighting, the corruption. Rome was a highly militarized autocracy that effectively integrated the foreign cultures it conquered. It dedicated its citizens to something higher than themselves, to the idea of Rome itself.
Civilization after the nukes was basically reset to a blank slate. And despite all of ancient Rome's problems, it was one of the longest lasting civilizations of all time. Is it really so bad to unify everyone under a single banner for the time being? Much like Rome in its glory days, the Legion doesn't have much trouble with raiders, criminals, and chaos. It's a very structured society, and there is peace within it through threat of force. But at the same time, Caesar is also just a man who found some ancient books and said, yeah, this'll work for the next 1,000 years.
I spent 2 centuries searching for the platinum chip. It's my invention, my property, mine! Now be a good courier and deliver it!
Give me that chip. No, sir.
And then there's Mr. House, the man responsible for saving Vegas before the nukes went off. And he has remained its sole proprietor ever since, restoring power to the city through Hoover Dam. Mr. House's life work has been to restore New Vegas to its former glory.
Revenge doesn't interest me. Progress does.
He's cunning, shrewd, and looks down upon the Legion and NCR as groups that haven't learned from the past. Mr. House, too, is a pretty compelling choice.
Give me 20 years, and I'll reignite the high technology development sectors. 50 years, and I'll have people in orbit. 100 years, and my colony ships will be heading for the stars to search for planets unpolluted by the wrath and folly of a bygone generation.
He got Vegas this far, right? But by siding with Mr. House, you're putting all your faith in a single man, a dictator who's hidden himself from the rest of the world.
I prefer the term autocrat.
He's also a firm believer in not dictating what people do. So he doesn't have any plans to fix the rest of the Mojave's problems. He just wants Vegas to continue being what it is. Mr. House lacks the ambition for change the other factions have.
What I did to you was rotten. But if you think House, the NCR, or Caesar won't kill to put Vegas in their pocket, I really did blow out your brains.
And finally, there's the independent yes man, programmed by Benny with a plan to take control of the strip by using the platinum chip. This option allows the player to choose what they do with the other minor factions, but they will have to kill Mr. House and beat both the Legion and NCR at Hoover Dam. While independence sounds fine and dandy, without a strong leader or system of government, everywhere inside and out of Vegas will succumb to chaos and disorder. Hot damn, is that complex or what? This is why the 4 choices are so hotly debated amongst fans even to this day. Which is the best option? It's entirely subjective. There's so many deep stories here. A lot of the themes with the companions and factions are all about letting go. Boone's PTSD from the death of his wife because of a miscommunication and getting revenge because of it. Veronica wishing the Brotherhood would change and adapt to prevent them from dying out and failing their purpose. The Great Khans holding on to their past glory after years of crippling defeats.
My tribe deserves better than this.
Caesar holding on to the ancient ways of Rome, unwilling to face the facts that his style of rule is brutal. The factions all talk shit about each other, and what's interesting is they're not wrong, but they are wrong about themselves. Caesar is just as unwilling to admit his flaws as the NCR or Mr. House is. And yet despite all their differences, there's one thing everyone has overlooked: war. You people have lived in this chaotic hellhole for 200 years, and you still haven't figured out why war is bad and you shouldn't do it? In Fallout New Vegas, the people still haven't learned to make peace, despite that being a constant reminder of the state they are in currently. Obsidian went to such great lengths to characterize each faction and make them feel real and compelling in their own way. It's such a profound game where different ideals and philosophies clash against each other, I find it immensely fitting that there is no peaceful solution in a game that begins with the words,
War. War never changes. And so the courier who had cheated death in the cemetery outside Goodsprings cheated death once again, and the Mojave Wasteland was forever changed.
Finally, there is the climactic Battle of Hoover Dam, and once you claim victory for the faction of your choice, the end credits roll and let you know how your decisions have shaped the world and people around you. Are you satisfied with them? Did you make the right moves? At the end of it all, I was still left wondering. Fallout New Vegas is much more than a spin-off. It's easily one of the most engaging adaptive video games I've ever played, and arguably the best Fallout. Choice is its greatest weapon. To be who you want to be, play how you want to play, to choose your enemies and your allies. New Vegas poses deep philosophical questions about morality. It goes beyond just being a fun shooty RPG. New Vegas is a game that'll make you think. It has such a unique setting that feels real, like Obsidian thought of every single way in which these societies would operate. New Vegas is jam-packed with likable, deep characters and the best quest design I've ever seen. If this game had a remaster to iron out its still-present technical problems, update the graphics and the engine, it would be undoubtedly a masterpiece. Its successes are made all the more impressive with its short development time, and the way it melds so many styles and time periods together is simply remarkable. I have no shortage of good things to say about it. And that is why Fallout New Vegas is so awesome.
The bear is rolling out across the west, and the bear is rolling out across the west.
Well, thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. It certainly has been a long time coming. Now, I have been struggling with some personal issues and stuff the last few weeks, so if you're wondering why the videos haven't been coming out as often, that's why. But I'm really glad to have finished this video, and I want to give a big shout out to all my Patreon supporters, all of you beautiful subscribers. All of you are the reason why I do this. What's your favorite mod? For a good while, it was Halo Online. Have you played Persona 5 Royal or Hollow Knight? I have played Hollow Knight and it's pretty damn good. If you could choose the last two Smash Bros. DLC characters, who would they be? Oh, imagine how cool it would be if it was Master Chief and Arbiter. What's your favorite Fallout faction? Brotherhood of Steel, baby. Are you excited about Resident Evil 8 Village? Kinda. Would you post other Fallout reviews? Thinking about doing a review of the DLC for New Vegas, but other than that, not sure. Will you ever do another Games That Need a Sequel video? I've thought about it, but for the time being, I kinda just like the content that I'm doing. Is there a specific video you really want to make for the channel, but are hesitant about doing? I had an Avatar The Last Airbender review all written and recorded back in September, but just never followed through with it. What comes after YouTube? Can you imagine far enough into the future where you no longer create content? I'll try to keep this going as long as humanly possible. I've always dreamed about being a fight choreographer for like TV shows, video games, or movies though. What do you think of the Wolfenstein series? I have not played it enough. Alright folks, that's all I got for today. This is the Actman signing out. Peace! I am the Actman, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a consumer not entitled to a complete game at release? No, says the designers. We need more time to fix the bugs. No, says the publishers. You need to buy the season's pass. No, says the shareholders. You have to wait for the next game.
I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose to play something different. I chose the impossible. I chose BioShock. A place where the gamer need not fear the loot box, where the player would not be bound by linear paths, where the story could be enjoyed to the fullest extent. And with the sweat on your controller, BioShock can become your video game as well.
BioShock 1 is widely considered to be one of the greatest video games of all time. But is it still worthy of that title 13 years later? You remember the trailers for this game? My goodness, they were brutal. And since its release, BioShock has been the go-to example in the debate of whether or not video games are art. Let me tell you folks, I can't think of a better example. Alright, well, you got me there. Beyond its exceptional art design and setting, in so many ways, BioShock is the complete opposite of what most first-person shooters are. It's a game where you left all your preconceived notions on the surface where they belong. But why bring up BioShock now? What relevance could it still have? Well, I aim to tell, and better yet show you, what makes it so awesome. Several questions need answering. Are the game's mechanics as deep as the Atlantic Ocean? Has BioShock aged well? Or has the allure of Rapture faded with time? What of the story and characters? Is there more to glance from them besides simple entertainment? Is this game truly a masterpiece? Well, let's hijack a plane, rescue some little sisters, and splice our way straight into this. The development of BioShock is pretty fascinating as it took place over several years. It all started with a man named Ken Levine and the studio Irrational Games, which would later become 2K. The first thing they knew was what the core gameplay was going to look like. Drones that carried a valuable resource, protectors that guarded the drones, and harvesters that attempted to take that resource. These things would become the big daddies, little sisters, and splicers that have become so iconic. BioShock went in many different directions, from being set on a spaceship to having a heavier emphasis on RPG mechanics. At one point, it was even going to take place in a World War II Nazi laboratory. After BioShock was remastered, players got a taste of all the various designs this game went through. And it's remarkable how many fully rendered character models were cut from the game. It's gotta be difficult to decide what ideas you scrap and which ones you roll with, but the end result speaks for itself. 2K made all the right decisions. Motivated by a freeform type shooter that put player control at the forefront and the desire to break the tired tropes and cliches of FPS titles, 2K built BioShock under a firm foundation. While the franchise had an extremely strong start, the 2 sequels and DLC that followed never really matched or outdid what 2K accomplished in their first go. And with that being said, let's dive right into Rapture. The story begins with the first and only words our protagonist Jack ever speaks.
They told me, son, you're special. You were born to do great things. You know what? They were right.
Words that ignite a mystery. In a stroke of bad luck, our plane crashes in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Big oof. Surrounded by flames and with nowhere else to go, we swim to the only piece of land in sight. This ominous lighthouse. As we step inside, the lights turn on, revealing a powerful figure and the words, "No gods or kings, only memes." As an instrumental version of Beyond the Sea begins to play, we are overcome with a foreboding feeling. But that soon disappears as the cheerful presentation is about to show us this magical place we've stumbled upon.
I chose the impossible.
I chose Rapture.
Immediately, BioShock makes the most profound introduction that captivates the player with ease. 5 minutes in, I'm sold. I'm hyped. This is it, Chief. I think everyone, even the most cynical people, could agree that 2K Games crafted one of the most immersive, detailed, and believable settings in video game history. Rapture is unforgettable.
I think a lot of people, when they played the game for the first time, they wondered, how did you even dream up this place?
An underwater utopian city gone berserk with gene splicing, genetic modification, power struggles, and corrupted ideals. The concept of a once divine city, now defiled, is amazing and ignites so many questions within the player's mind that the game will answer. And eventually, you'll get answers to questions you never asked. While some models are kind of ugly, that's kind of the point, and it obviously doesn't compare to the graphical fidelity of modern games, this art style is timeless. Can we just put one thing to rest? This is art. This is fucking art, dude, okay? Keep in mind, this is my 5th or 6th playthrough of the game, and each time I've gone back to Rapture, I always take time to look around and appreciate the visuals. I'm sure we all wish we could have grabbed an underwater jet ski and explored the opening area, and thanks to Shazez from Boundary Break, we can do just that. Now, in some games, when you take the camera in places you aren't meant to go, the developers will cut corners, leave out sections of buildings, have things that aren't rendered, etc. But in the intro, everything is fully rendered. 2K Games knew this opening was gonna hook people in, like a mystical sea slug. The reasoning behind being set in an underwater city was to make the player feel isolated and trapped.
We knew that we wanted isolation. We also knew to sell it, we needed a compelling storyline, a backstory that why would this place exist? Otherwise, how are we going to make Rapture feel like it's lived in if we don't have the reason for it to be there?
And while the bathysphere ride is amazing, once we reach our destination, we have our first encounter with life in Rapture. Oh, damn! Alright, Mr. Ryan, you played me, man. This ain't anything like the opening monologue. And with our only means of escape destroyed, we're forced to heed the words of our Irish companion Atlas.
Would you kindly pick up that shortwave radio?
As he guides us through the dangerous city. With hardly any other sane people in Rapture, Atlas seems like the only person we can really trust.
We're gonna need to draw her out of hiding, but you're gonna have to trust me.
Would I lie?
Welcome to Rapture is where we see the most cinematics and get a ton of world-building scenes. Yeah, I really don't want to be here anymore. Yeah, it's dangerous as fuck. Okay, this guy just assaulted a child and... What's that? What is... Holy shit, it's the guy from the front cover.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
Oh, damn!
Get the fuck out of here! That's the big daddy.
Won't beef with you, homie. You're all good. I like your music. Don't beef with me. As we progress, Atlas gives us a brief rundown of what's happened in Rapture. After fighting our way through a few bad guys, well shit, when in Rome, just fucking plunge that needle into your arm. Whoa, man. The Atom, bro. As we try to link up with Atlas, Andrew Ryan personally introduces himself.
So tell me, friend, which one of the bitches sent you? The KGB wolf or the CIA jackal? Here's the news. Rapture isn't some sunken ship for you to plunder. And Andrew Ryan isn't a giddy socialite who can be slapped around by government muscle.
This opening level is the perfect introduction. It sets up the story, Andrew Ryan's motivations for creating Rapture, we get a feeling of the depraved nature of everything, yet also see how Rapture could once be beautiful. The seeds of a socio-political commentary are planted, The combat mechanics are introduced. We learn how big daddies and little sisters function. You pick up a wrench, a revolver, trip balls on a plasmid, learn how to shock people, and give them the 1-2 punch.
Remember, the 1-2 punch!
You witness a ghostly vision, listen to a couple audio logs, all in the span of like 20 minutes. Efficient, powerful, and believable. Yet this is just a taste, a mere appetizer of what BioShock has in store for us.
Hi, I'm Ken Levine, the creative director of Rational Games, and we're here today to show you a little bit of BioShock. Well, what are we trying to do? It's pretty ambitious. What we're trying to do is to redefine what it means to be a first-person shooter. Our goal is to put a stake in the heart of all those cliches you've been playing for years in first-person shooters. The linear corridors, the very static environments, and the cookie-cutter AIs. Now, we understand that's a pretty lofty goal, and it's really going to be up to you guys to decide whether we succeed. But with that said, let's go to the world of Rapture and take a look at BioShock.
BioShock's core gameplay, in all its nuances, defies the trends of most shooters, where you unquestionably follow orders, go down linear path number 378, kill all bad guys, move on to the next area, watch a cutscene. Ramirez, protect the burger town from those big daddies! There's none of that. Instead, BioShock's story and gameplay interweave the concepts of freedom and choice. And that's what makes it different. This one, too linear. This one, too predictable. This one, too forgettable.
What's this, guys? An intruder! He's ugly! 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 Ugly!
Even over the radio, Atlas and the other characters tell you what to do, but not always how to do it. The game doesn't hold your hand for long. It respects the player's intelligence in letting them figure things out. BioShock is a sandbox game, where you're given a wide assortment of weapons and tools, and the designers say, "Alright, kiddo, show us what you can do with these." Each individual who plays this is inevitably going to make different decisions in the plasmids they use, weapon upgrades, and tonics. That's what makes BioShock so replayable. You might think, that cyclone trap looks kinda stupid, I'll stick with the happy bees. And in your next playthrough, you just might experiment. There's a million ways to take out the splicers, stun them in the water, burn the poor bastards alive, hack turrets and watch them spit rounds while you sit in a corner, sneak up on them and bash, bash, bash their head in, freeze them with Winter Blast. You can hypnotize big daddies, cameras, turrets, force your enemies to fight each other. You can set up traps and lure in the big daddies. Nearly every item can be picked up and thrown using telekinesis. It's recess, baby, and Rapture is your playground.
I've always liked the idea of giving the player a lot of agency in terms of their playstyle and experimenting with the playstyle and trying different things and seeing what worked and didn't work and interacting with the environment. The notion that it's sort of a playground.
And I'm so surprised how every strategy is viable and fun. Every weapon, plasmid, upgrade has a use. Nothing feels overtuned or underpowered. And you gotta love the little propaganda tutorials before you learn a new plasmid.
Cry out for Big Daddy's help. Make him think you're a little sister. Watch as he fights to protect you.
BioShock concocts the perfect blend of balance and fun. Although here's a pro tip, upgrade the chemical thrower to use less ammo, and once you do that, select the electric gel, and you have now trivialized every Big Daddy fight. Not so tough now, are ya? Amazingly, BioShock is one of the extremely rare video games that justifies every aspect of gameplay, and it creates this unbreakable level of immersion that is typical of a masterpiece. You got your Adam and Eve, not so subtle biblical references, audio logs reveal characters experimenting with the plasmids.
Right, I'm introducing Lot 44 now. We've codenamed Lot 44 Enrage because of its tendency to... Nurse? Hold him down! Nurse!
BioShock explains why Atom is a currency at all, why there are stores everywhere, civil war going on, hacking is mentioned in several audio diaries.
It has been brought to my attention that some citizens have discovered ways to hack the vending machines.
With all the craziness going on in Rapture, people started building automated defenses. Ryan had cameras set up. Everything is connected to the lore. Even the audio diaries themselves have advertisements in the medical pavilion. Seeing as how Rapture was built as a capitalist haven, everything is a business, and it's advertised like a business. The weapons too are a byproduct of the story and setting, fitting in aesthetically with the 50s, 60s biopunk theme. But of course, Fontaine also smuggled weapons and other things in from the surface. Even the respawn mechanic is justified through the Vita chamber, and characters acknowledge that. BioShock adds context to the gameplay in ways that most games don't even bother. Now all this is nice and interesting, yet it don't matter if the gameplay is busto, but it's a regular mother goose. These weapons feel and sound awesome. Each weapon has 3 ammo types for different situations. Got stuff like incendiary bolts, explosive rounds, anti-personal, armor-piercing. There's even a crafting mechanic introduced halfway through. This aspect of survival horror is awesome in BioShock. You're constantly scavenging for supplies to stay on top of things. There's nothing worse than feeling ill-prepared. However, BioShock is not perfect.
Dare attack me? Am I supposed to be impressed? He was here a second ago.
On consoles, aiming and control can feel very stiff, hit detection too. You can aim down sights, but it's pretty sluggish. Cycling through weapons is tedious, but most of these issues aren't a problem on PC. Now, the camera, while a neat mechanic allowing you to research enemies, learn their weaknesses, the function is poor.
There! Pretty as a picture!
While at first it's fun to photograph splicers and whatnot, you quickly just start spamming pictures to get that research bar filled up, in the middle of a gunfight. Later in the game, some enemies have just arbitrary increases in health while others are much weaker. Some fights become more a test of endurance than skill, as you tank bullets and spam health kits until your enemies are dead. Throughout each level, the designers sprinkle in new plasmids, weapons, refresh your arsenal, and add in some new enemy variety to, splice things up.
Hey, that really sucked!
I feel like enemy placement in a level is also a severely under-discussed aspect of game design. Splicers and Big Daddies are guaranteed to show up in certain places. You have some scripted encounters. For instance, when you grab this shotgun, you will always be mobbed by a group of thugs. Valuable items are often put in front of the player as a gleaming trinket. Come grab me. Oh, shouldn't have done that. BioShock teaches you through these moments to always be careful about where you're going and what's happening around you. In the Fort Frolic Auditorium, there's a gene tonic hidden up top, and you have to jump to it. After grabbing it, enemies spawn, and Cohen remarks on your athleticism.
What an outstanding display of athleticism.
I mean, goddamn, this game is detailed. Even if you clear an area, should you return, there's always the possibility of splicers or Big Daddies roaming the area. It functions a little similar to the director from the Left 4 Dead series, unlike, say, Dead Space, where the spawning of necromorphs is specifically tuned. BioShock is unpredictable. As far as I remember, there's only one area where the spawning feels really cheap, and that's the beehives in the farmer's market. It's not just the combat that makes BioShock fun, it's how the combat is set up. Let me show you some examples. In Sinclair Spirits, there's a hidden button behind the bar leading to a Power to the People station. If you use it, turn around and walk up the stairs, and those 6 plaster splicers are gone, scattered around Fort Frolic. In Arcadia, you're stalked by these mysterious cultists. They set fire to things and teleport away from you. BioShock doesn't rely on jump scares to frighten the player. All the fear is psychological. the lighting, sound design. That's what makes BioShock scary. When Peach Wilkins lets you inside, he takes all your weapons and you're forced to fight him with just your plasmids and wrench. Just like the Flood, splicers will pretend to be dead before hopping up and opening fire. And my favorite encounter of all, when you give Sander Cohen the third picture for his quad tick, and he thinks you're gonna betray him. All the lights except one turn off. Splicers invade the area as Waltz of the Flower plays in the background. This game is magic. As you walk through Rapture and hear the manic voices of wandering splicers, it puts you on edge. When Big Daddies are nearby, their steps shake the screen. You can listen for falling ceiling tiles to locate a spider splicer. Whether or not you realize it, the game is signaling enemy movements to the player.